Great water. At a big river. Great Shellfish Bay. The word Chesapeake might be translated to mean a few different things, depending on who you ask. Something that all experts will agree on, however, is that the Chesapeake Bay is vitally important. Not only for the survival of 3,600 native species, but also for the livelihood of 18 million of us who call the Chesapeake Bay watershed our home. The health of the bay impacts the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat. Its natural systems, like oyster reefs, can also protect us from catastrophic weather events. This is why we must work together to revive this precious ecosystem and make it more resilient to the urgent threats of climate change.
We are projected to see 2 feet of sea level rise in the Choptank River area by 2080.
With over 3,000 miles of shoreline, the state of Maryland faces a high risk of sea level rise. As a result, a lot of the shoreline has been armored with man-made or gray infrastructure known as breakwaters, which are designed to protect the land from waves and erosion. Unfortunately, this existing infrastructure cannot keep pace with rising sea levels, and it is no longer sufficient to sustain our coasts.
A lot of these structures are 20 years old, 25 years old, and in need of repair. They're in need of height, really. In order to protect the shoreline, these breakwaters have to be a certain height in the water column.
Likewise, current oyster populations are struggling to sustain the bay.
Oysters are so important to the Chesapeake Bay ecosystem, especially to all of the wildlife that live in and around the Chesapeake Bay. From providing a food source to improving water quality to providing habitat, oysters provide a lot of good in the Chesapeake Bay ecosystem. And unfortunately, the Chesapeake oyster population is about 1% of its historic levels due to overfishing and disease.
In response to both of these needs, the National Wildlife Federation has partnered with the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science to develop a solution that protects local communities from rising sea levels, while also reviving the bay's wildlife. They call this approach greening the gray.
We're really trying to take a novel approach to making our coastlines more resilient.
Inspired by natural oyster reefs, they are designing an innovative new type of breakwater known as an oyster retrofit.
A natural oyster reef is just really great at reducing wave energy. And this oyster retrofit concept is a way to kind of create a natural oyster reef out of gray or hardened infrastructure. So our idea is to use concrete building block structures called oyster castles, to plant them with oysters and then install them in different fashions on these breakwaters that are degraded.
If this technology is successful, it will mean that we have infrastructure that can respond to the environment, it can repair itself, it can support greater and more habitat for commercially and ecologically important species.
You'll have more oysters growing in the bay, you'll have more protected shorelines, and you'll have offshore breakwaters that don't need to be replaced every 20 years, because these oysters could potentially grow up into the water column as sea level rises. So we're hoping that this will be a win-win approach.
Before we can achieve these goals, these organizations need your help. If you have restoration expertise that can help move this project forward, if you own waterfront property that might benefit from green infrastructure, or if you're another Maryland resident who stands to benefit from a healthy bay, you can make this future a reality by supporting the Oyster Retrofit project. Help us green the gray.